Okay, well, let's get started then. Thank you all for coming. I hope you had a wonderful summer. It's so nice to see your faces again. I, for a hot second, thought we might actually be meeting in person, but not yet. Maybe before the end of the year. Yes. All right. Do we have any public comments today? I don't think so. Did anybody submit anything? I didn't see anything. Okay, we have, oh, yes, Jody.
I have one thing, and hopefully she'll be showing up here soon. We do have a new liaison to this group from the Main Street group. So,
okay,
cool.
Great.
That's not really a public comment. She can introduce herself when she shows up.
What's their name?
Shelly, and I will have to spell her last name after I'll find it here. Let me find it real quick and spell it for you.
Okay, just curious.
Socolofsky. So if you can pronounce that, good luck.
Like Sokovsky, something like that.
Something like that.
Okay, cool. Well, hopefully she'll be able to get in here. Okay, the last time we have minutes from, because our May meeting, we didn't have a quorum, is from April. It looked like, Nancy, I saw your response. Everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes from April. Excuse me. Doug, I don't know. I'd like to just put them up on the screen. Is that possible when we're recording? Okay. You're muted, but I think you said, yeah, just give me a minute.
Let me see if I can share the screen with you. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay. Oh, and of course, sorry. The inefficiency of.
All right, see if that works for you.
Oh, you're just getting my screen. Hold on. Share. Agenda. Minutes. Yeah. Okay. Can you guys see them?
Yes.
Okay, great. So again, just there anything to change on there? It looked like for the most part, nobody had any feedback. So I will entertain a motion to get these approved. Anyone?
I move that we approve the minutes from April of 2021.
I second.
Great. Anyone opposed? All right. So passed. We have official minutes from April 7th. Thank you so much. Okay, now I'll stop sharing this, bring you all back. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. Sorry, I will share again. This one I actually have ready. So for this evening's meeting, we've got the call to order, check, public comments done, approval of minutes completed. There's a couple of new business items. One is the statue and water fountain on Main Street. And then Carrie had gotten some information about Clackamas County's new art groups and city art councils. So I know there was a meeting and she had gone kind of as a liaison, I think. So she'll give us an update on that. Old business, hopefully final review and next steps for approving the bylaws, revisiting the art inventory, and then sort of opening up for board comments. And then that'll do us for the day. So for the statue and water fountain, there's a couple emails from Lance with some information about it. Keeps doing this. I open a window and then it goes blank, which is really annoying. Let's see if I can open his picture at least. So this only came to my personal attention from an email that Beata had shared from Terry Cummings, our previous Arts Council liaison, about a statue and fountain that is slated to go in down, I call it downtown, but on Main Street, West Linn. And currently, it looks like the Planning Commission or the Water Department has selected a fountain of, what's her name? Mary by the Water or something. Does anybody remember? Have it open.
It's Rebecca at the well.
Rebecca at the well. Thank you so much. Here I have a picture of it that I can share with you. Okay.
And while you're looking for that, if I can chime in.
Oh, yes.
Thanks for having me. I'm Eric Leas. I'm the assistant city engineer. Lance is out the rest of the week, so I'm sitting in for him.
Oh, hi, Eric. I thought you were our IT person, so nice to see you.
No, I'm terrible at IT stuff. So
Okay, good.
yeah. So while you're looking for that, I was just going to give a little background. While
Yes,
we
please.
have that statue that is shown in the drawing, and I think I have it on my computer too, if you can.
Okay, I was
find it.
able to find it, but I'll let you give us the background before I put it.
We haven't, and Mary, chime in here if I speak out of turn, but council gave the thumbs up to build the water fountain, the building, the facility. What's going to happen with the statue is to be determined by this group, as I understand. So while we have the statue at one of our public works facility, and I think Lance said he put the invitation out there to the group to go see it if you wish, but the building is roof, as I understand it, is designed to have whatever. I think the one thing along with the statue is in the picture, it also shows lion heads on the side. Those need to be, I think we said we weren't going to use them, but as I understand it now, the original design, those function as a water fountain or a water cascades out of their mouth, I guess, of some sort. But I guess apparently the way the building was designed, they were going to be used not as a water fountain, but as vents for the inside of the building. So really it is,
Rendering.
I'm here to just, if you don't like, obviously we would prefer to use what we've already purchased, but we're obviously open to, if you'd rather go with another decorative piece, that's great too. We're open for discussion. I think the goal for our end would just be to have something that's easily maintained, replaced if something were to happen. Low maintenance, low cost, obviously. So
speaking as the liaison from the historic Main Street, and I also know that this opinion is also held by the Willamette Neighborhood Association, is that we do not want to see that particular statue used, nor the lions. We would like to see something that is sort of more characteristic of the flavor of historic Willamette, and really would look to working with this group to come up with that. I mean, I go down to Hughes's Water Garden all the time. They have lots and lots of different things that are made for toppers for water features. But we can also look for something that is more of an artwork. My understanding, and Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Lance said that yes, there are holes that are vent holes that can be covered with something. Right now, not thinking that the lions would be particularly good, though I have heard people say lions would be good since of the lions for the high school. but I think that's up for discussion too. But the topper that will be plumbed to have something that is a fountain on top. It's just will not, at this point in time, nothing will be put on top until this group comes to a decision on that. And like I said, the Main Street group, the design committee would like to see something else. And I believe that is also the sentiment of the neighborhood association.
So that's really interesting, Jody. I had assumed, and I know very little about this whole project. I, like Lauren, saw it through an email, and I think the conversation up to this point basically encapsulates everything from that email. But I guess I was operating under the assumption that that was what Jody, your group had picked out. So if your group doesn't want it, then where did that decision come from?
Lance sent us the same email you got. That was the first we saw of it. We saw it, and that was it. So no, we had
so whose
no
money is
input
it?
at all.
So whose money is it, and whose decision, or who made the decision at this point?
Actually, it is being created by some water fund money, and Eric may be able to give the specifics on which fund. It's actually not coming out of the Main Street money or the arts or the percent for the arts. So it's coming out of a different pot of money. And my understanding is that Lance saw this, he took it to the city manager, Jerry, who approved it, and then Lance moved ahead with it. And then city council asked that there be a hold put on that at the request of the neighborhood association in Main Street, when we had some concerns that it had not gone through us, it had not gone through you, it had not gone to anybody that we could find. And so it is now, that particular topper is in storage, could be used someplace else in the city. We don't really want it there. The fountain is being constructed. Our request from Main Street in our original discussions was that we wanted a bike kiosk. We now have bike repair equipment standing free form without any roof over it, next to where the fountain is being put in. And our concept originally in our discussions was to have water and the bike repair station all in a covered kiosk with some maps and other, informational kinds of things. So currently, it looks like what we have is we have the bike repair station uncovered next to the place where they're actually putting in the fountain as we speak. The cement has been cut, the hole has been created, there's rebar being put in there, and it is being constructed. So the agreement we have from Lance is that they will keep the topper in storage until this group, along with our input from us and from others, can come up with what we think would be an appropriate topper or things on the side.
Beata. Unmute.
You're muted.
Okay, now, I always have trouble to find that button. Sorry about that. Yeah, so when I got the email, I was wondering about the picture in the first place, because I think the lines and the top doesn't fit to the base. And I was wondering if we are going for something modern, and because it said already all is bought, I was under the impression, as everybody else, I guess now, that it was already set and done. Besides, we should say our okay as a group, sort of. Because the top is now bought, I have no idea who actually the group or person is who has to go forward with that. I mean, now we are asked to give our okay or our input. So I have no idea where to start with that, because as I said, I think the lines and the top doesn't even match the base, and the Main Street group should have more impact on that, because it's going in the Main Street and you did all the constructions, and also you were thinking about the banners and the lighting and all that. So it should fit some sort of together. That's my understanding. So I was like, if I will be asked for an opinion or for an okay for that thing, I would say no, I don't say yes, I don't say no, I mute my voice for that as well, because as everybody saw before, we were not even involved, or even the Main Street wasn't involved in the whole decision. So I don't know how to go forward with that whole thing.
I think that, oh, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, it's okay.
I just, I agree, and I think, I mean, I have mostly questions. It does seem like Lance seemed very like, this isn't set in stone. But like, I am curious, what are the parameters? Is it $1,500 or less? Is that something that comes from a catalog? Is that, if it's not arts funding being used for it, can we still say no? Because I agree, I'm not a big fan of this particular design. I don't think it speaks to sort of any of the history of Westland or the culture of Westland, and we just have so many more schools here than the high school, so let's get a bunch of animals around there. Anyway, so I don't know, yeah, sort of what the parameters are, but I think if we were to imagine that, like, if, as per Lance's email, we are able to give feedback initially saying, none of us like this, or, you know, we can take a vote and decide if that's actually what we want to say, but and then I just don't know how to move forward. So maybe, I don't know if Councilor Baumgartner, if you know sort of next steps, or if that's a question for Lance, or if Eric, if you happen to know, if we did say we want to look at the catalog, how that, like, what, so then what? I guess.
Well, I would speak if there's a moment, if this is a good time. As far as the process, that isn't exactly what I was going to speak on, though, so I don't have an answer for that, sorry. But I did want to have briefly contribute a little on an idea that a person had shared with me who was unable to attend this meeting. But it's Elizabeth Rokia, so I know that you probably all know her. But she had an idea that although it wouldn't be possible in actual fact, which was repurposing the tiles that were on Willamette Primary School, which unfortunately we discovered when we looked into it that they were not able to be saved when they were removed. But we just, in our discussions, talked about the possibility of maybe even it becoming a project for a school, or even for a Parks and Rec program that kids could sign up and create tiles. So this is something we were talking about. So I thought I'd just put it out there toward your group and see what you wanted, you know, if there was any ideas that could go along those lines.
Also shared that with me, and I really think that has some merit in terms of how they're created, or who is involved, or what they represent. I certainly think it's worth something to consider. And I think if Eric can maybe has the answer. I don't know if there's still funding in the water fund that the statue was purchased from, but I do think this is something that could probably be, funds could probably come from the arts monies, because it is on Main Street and there are some dollars for arts, and whether it's an original artwork or some other top from some other location that is an art like feature, that's also possible. I think if we did something like the tiles, some of those other things, a lot of the funding for that may be able to come through your funding for a percent for the arts. But I think we would need to check with either Lance or someone in the city budget office, because like I said, I don't know if there's additional money from the water fund, wherever that came from, or if it needs to come from a different source. That's not something I have an answer for. I just know that we heard pretty clearly from Lance that we could go ahead and pursue with this group coming up with a design that all of us are more comfortable with.
I have a question. I think I asked that a long time ago. Is there, what is West Linn, does West Linn has a logo or a theme anyway? I mean, we see the signs when you drive into West Linn, there is the tree on it. But I don't know if that is something we can or want to incorporate in the outside or in the sidings of that fountain. But what also comes to my mind is in Tualatin, actually, there is a art piece. It looks like the elephant tooth or something, but around it there are patterns from the theme of the area. Let's say there is a wagon, there is a salmon, there is, I don't know what exactly all is on there, a leaf or a tree or something like that. So, but it's scattered around. So if you have the idea with the tiles, that is actually, I think it's a good idea, but I wouldn't do it only with one school. If we want to do it with the schools, I would incorporate all the schools, particular students who are interested in to contribute to something like that, or if we can find images that are represent West Linn, and then they can go around. What goes on the top, I don't know, but for sure for the sides instead of the lines, that could be an idea to have more images that represent West Linn.
If I can jump in here real quick, I'm hearing kind of two different things. I just want to make sure we're clear on kind of hopefully what we're discussing tonight. The statue, obviously, that whatever, I don't know where this one even came from, to be honest. So if it's a catalog, if it's down at Lowe's or wherever, that's fine. But I keep hearing the tiles. I just want to make clear that the building design is kind of set. So what stone block for the construction of the building, that's set. It's more of the decoration that would go on it, let's say, because I know our water supervisor's been working with a contractor to. Now, the way I understand it is the block isn't going to look exactly like that, but the
Looks
design.
like this piece down here is gonna stay concrete blocks.
Yeah, so like that whole piece, the structure is what it is, but what goes on the top, that's what we're discussing. And so where the money comes, I don't know. I don't see why we couldn't find some money to help match if there is some money for the arts that could go towards it. The way I was told that was $1,500. I don't have any idea what's in the arts funds, to be honest. So I think that we could come up with something to match that. I know, like a lot of construction projects, we're facing increasing construction costs. We've had to make a couple changes to not build it right over the water line, so it's moved closer to the bike path, which in the picture, the actual water fountain was on the bike path side, and the carbonated water was on the adjacent to it. Well, we've had to flip those now so that the water fountain doesn't hang out into the bike path. So,
Eric, do you happen to know what the timeline is? I also, that was not in Lance's email, and I just don't know, like, is time of the essence here? If construction's already started, that feels.
No, our crew has done the water, the storm, basically utility services, got power. We're waiting. I talked to Matt yesterday, and it kind of seems like our contractor has went MIA, but I don't know if anybody's tried to do any kind of home renovation. I've been landscaping, whatever. It doesn't seem like anybody wants to return calls anymore. So we're dealing with that. I think the contractor had originally asked for the deadline to be extended, and so I want to say it's the end of November, but don't quote me on that. I think the theme, if you're wanting to stick, I know various opinions, but I'll just throw this out there, that if you're looking for a theme, Lance's initial idea with, and I think there's a plaque that it was going to go on it too, that would represent the history of the water in the area. And so keeping in that water theme, I think the fountain was going to have water that was going to cascade down off of it too. So,
Was.
it is what it is. I mean, I guess Doug or what I'm assuming this group will brainstorm more on, find some ideas and then come back and.
Yeah, I mean, I can give a little genesis of this whole thing. This was when you got the email, I got the email. So internally, I didn't know anything about this and found out when you all found out. As I understand it, Lance bought this out of a catalog, decided what it would be, and themes with the lion's head, like they did on the dam, that the entrance to the covered dam now up by the high school. You'll see the two lions sitting there. I think because of the high school, like you said, and he mentioned in the email. I think the Rebecca at the Well is simply something that came out of a catalog, thought it was more European. Obviously, there are some religious overtones to that as well. So again, this was, I think, a decision made solo or with very few input from anybody else. And thus we're sitting here today having this discussion. I think it did cost $1,800 out of a catalog. And, I think Lance can come up with whatever it is that he needs to from his budget to figure that out. That would be my recommendation to everybody on that front. But it is there. It is also the Public Works. And when we built the arts and culture, when you all just created bylaws around it, we could go back and Carrie, maybe you would know right off the bat, there were some Public Works transportation related and maybe other Public Works items that were not qualifiers, or were at I can't remember exactly, but
there were some exclusions to which projects qualified for the percent for arts. I don't recall off the top of my head whether or not utilities, like which side of the fence that fell on, but
so that'd be something for us to all look at and to make sure that we wouldn't want to misappropriate the fund if that's where it needs to come from.
Well, if the funds came from the water department, I guess my take on this, well, first off, if we were to vote on this, it sounds like it would get a big downvote based on what everybody said so far. But at the same time, this is reminding me a lot of the signage at White Oak Savannah. And I guess I would like to move that the Arts and Culture Commission only get involved with projects that are coming from percent for arts funds. Because otherwise, I think we're going to become the beautification team that just gets called in whenever somebody doesn't like a statue. And I feel like that's kind of where this is headed. Like we could spend the next hour and a half of tonight's meeting brainstorming things to put on top of that water fountain. But at the end of the day, I feel like that's more, like I totally agree that Jody and her group have every right to be frustrated that something's going into their main street that they weren't consulted on. But I don't think that we should be the mediating party on that. Personally, that might be an unpopular decision or opinion.
I'd like to ask Mary what she understood from the city council's vote on that, because I think my recollection of that city council meeting is that the city council actually directed this group to weigh in on it. So I don't disagree with you, Carrie, but I do think that my understanding was that the direction from city council was it was directed to this group.
So I think if we are then asked, we should first find out what should happen with the figurine that's already purchased. Because for me, as I said before, it sounded like, okay, we will be asked, but it's bought, so it has to go on there or somewhere else. But in general, maybe we should only now recommend maybe find something different or have a further discussion, especially with a Main Street group, and go from there and mention the tiles. I mean, the tiles was only an idea to put them on that concrete block instead of the lions, or something that can be decorative instead of the lions. But in general, maybe we should wait until we hear back from Lance or from whoever was in charge for buying, and what will be, oh my God, that's hard to explain. What would be the outcome when we only give a recommendation? Can we give a recommendation, or should we really go forward with an idea or with a design? That's what I don't know where we should go forward with.
Well, and that's what I think Mary was maybe going to answer about what council had as far as our involvement expectation. I appreciate the point, Carrie, and I agree. So I don't know, Mary, if you do remember sort of what our role here has been requested to be.
Thank you. I believe in our discussion, the council generally felt that that although putting in a fountain and a drinking facility, it does certainly come under public works appropriately. The addition of the art elements to it changed somewhat. And the end result would be basically art in the public square with a fountain, in conjunction. So I think what we were discussing was that having it be a more of a public process, at the very least. And then when we discussed public process, I think that's when the arts and culture group came up, and we thought, and it wasn't in my mind, it's not tasking you if you don't want to be involved with it, because I do understand what Carrie's saying, that can be difficult. So I guess maybe it was as much as anything, what we should do next time is, instead of, and now we've learned maybe from this process to, okay, fountains, yes, public works, adding artistic elements, maybe go through a better process that involves more decision makers who are part of the community. And if I understand it would be difficult to poll the community, because that has its own inherent issues. So a representative group, which you are, and Jody, of course, represents a group who also has a special interest in this particular public square. So I don't think that council was saying, oh, we have to go through arts and culture. So if that isn't if the group decides they prefer not to be involved, I don't think the council would have a problem with that. So that's kind of a roundabout answer.
And I think Main Street, we would be happy to take it on and involve you all if you would rather just go that route. I mean, I don't think the design committee at all would have a problem with trying to get input from you all, get input from the neighborhood association and other stakeholders as folks would identify them. I mean, I think we would be perfectly comfortable doing that, but we want to do it in coordination with you and not as sort of like warring groups to figure out what to put on top of the now fountain we'll have.
Well, there is, so Carrie did actually make a motion, which is lingering out there. For basically for the Arts and Culture Council to not take this up. But are there any seconds to that, or do we want to have more discussion about it? Or amendments? I honestly don't know what happens if something doesn't get seconded. I guess it just goes away. I don't know. Okay, because I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I also agree that we don't want to be sort of monitoring every art purchase that comes from everywhere. But was so exciting and fun to think of being involved in something. So I don't know if we can, sort of as a next step, sort of respond to Lance, direct him to Main Street and the Willamette Neighborhood Association. And if there is somebody from this group, and I can do it via email, so it's open to everybody, or the 4 members who've shown up tonight, who wants to sort of be a part of that discussion and committee, but that I can, if the group's so interested, I can sort of send back to Lance to say that we'll have a representative group or a representative from our group as part of a discussion, but that it really should be more with Main Street and the local neighborhood association.
I guess to Carrie's point, if the whatever the new purchase is does come out of the percent for arts, then obviously we would be involved. So, but so I agree with Carrie's statement earlier too. If it's not going to involve us, then yeah, we can weigh in, like you're saying, Lauren. We can weigh in and have a representative work with Jody's group, because I wouldn't even know. Jody, you mentioned the covering over everything, and we wouldn't know how tall is that, how tall would a statue, what would a statue look underneath the cover, so I think your group would definitely be more influential in that area.
We're not
And I
even
would
sure
think-
if a covering is feasible or there's any money to do it at this point. So I think it's just one of those things that was sort of our vision. I'm not sure if that vision is possible anymore. We need to find that out too.
And I could see the outcome of this being, the decision to put something different on top is made, and perhaps at that point, because I could see us being involved if it involved putting out a call for artists to create something custom for that. But I don't think it's our commission's place to be party to the catalog selection process, because that seems to me outside our bailiwick. Is that the right word?
Wheelhouse.
Yes.
Baseball
Well, and
season.
I also don't know if there's a way for the Arts Commission, if it's that there's a limited amount of water funds that are capped at $1,500 or $1,800, that obviously that's not going to be enough for any sort of custom item or, even metal kind of anyway, but that if there was an opportunity to match water funds or something, that at least then you could have something where there's justification for the Arts Council to be involved, and maybe something beyond the limited catalog of pre-made stuff.
So is it worth putting together? It's our recommendation that other options be pursued, and that more involved stakeholders should be involved in the decision of what that alternative topper is. And can we give that recommendation but not go so far as a formal vote? Because I'm worried about that precedent, that if we do a formal vote as a commission on that, then suddenly we're in the statute approving game.
It's fine with me, but do you want to make an actual motion that people vote on?
Before you make a motion, can I chime in again real quick? Just throwing this out there, what would happen if it didn't have a topper on it? Is that out of the question?
I know that, at least according to what I understood from Lance, is that he was still plumbing it to have a topper that had some kind of water feature on top. I think the Main Street Design Group actually thought that is not such a bad idea, because it's sort of a block of, it's just a big square block of, and I don't particularly find that to be attractive, just to be a big square block of something. So if we can come up with something that people are comfortable with and think at least is somewhat representative of the community or of the style of the Main Street, I think that would be the design committee's preference. I mean, I don't have an idea of what that would be at this moment. I haven't looked at catalogs, and I think going out for public art we would have to have some pretty clear guidelines in terms of what would be needed and where the money was coming from. So there's a lot of steps in there. But I think at this point in time, since we are going to have this rather large square.
What is the
Column.
timeline on that? Is there already a timeline when it should be set it? And what is the timeline to get then a top art piece on it? I mean,
My understanding from Lance is that they will cap the top, so that the plumbing is there. And then if we come up, you, us, whoever we are, come up with what the top should be, then it can be installed at that time. Eric, if you have a different understanding of that, I would appreciate hearing it. But my understanding in our conversations with Lance is that there's no reason they can't build it and construct it and just cap the water source on the top. So when we come up with what we would like to see on the top, that could in fact be a fountain of some kind, a water feature of some kind, let's call it that way. It doesn't necessarily have to be a fountain, it could be a water feature, just something that I don't know. But that would then be installed at that point in time. If we get it done by November, when they finish up creating this, then we can put it on at the time that they finish their construction. If it's later, it can be added later. And so Eric, if you have a different understanding of that, please let me know.
Right. I think you got it. It's fully functional as a building water feature or a fountain, drinking fountain without a topper. It's meant to, if it gets vandalized, damaged, swap it out. So it'll be fine. There is no timeline to have this decision made on a different statue. It'll get the building will get built. It'll operate. So whenever the new feature gets decided on, then we'll put it on.
so that includes the lion heads too, right? They are not on there when they set the.
That's what I understand. Yes.
Okay.
So can I just get what I'm hearing? So this group doesn't want to go maybe search for an alternative, or you do? And then if you're not the group that wants to, who is doing that? Because I've heard, going back to Lance, but it sounds like according to Lance, he's in city council, Mary, if I'm correct, that the decision is with somebody else on what is going to go on there.
I think without having a formal motion as of yet, the recommendation would be that other options get pursued, but that the additional entities of Main Street and the Willamette Neighborhood Association get conferred with about the actual selection process. And then honestly, if they or you guys at that point then want to invite a member of our team to join that discussion, I think there's probably some interest for us doing that, but that it should defer to the local sort of neighborhood or Main Street entity to make the choice. Just because mostly, I mean, based on entirely that there are no art funds currently being used for it. Does that help?
I think so.
Do know, if you'll remember from the bylaws, if I can interrupt, that if you are going to make if the Arts and Culture Commission want to make a recommendation, that recommendation does go to City Council. Ultimately, City Council is the ones that make the decision as to what's purchased based probably on your recommendation, but that is something that did change out. It used to be the city manager. And then when you all worked on with the city rewriting those bylaws, that is to them. So ultimately, if it's coming from the commission, and maybe I can't speak for Public Works, but certainly from the commission, it would have to be a recommendation going forward to them for what you would do.
Thanks, Doug.
You know, also in the bylaws, actually not in the bylaws, in the guidelines that the bylaws reference that hopefully we are very close to putting in front of council soon. In there, we have the selection process that that we would use if we were, you know, looking for an artist to create something for wherever, Fountain or wherever. And part of that process outlines how a selection committee is formed and how it involves various stakeholders that are, like, it talks about like the department that, I'm not looking at them, so I apologize because it's much more succinct than the actual thing. But like the department that's funding it should be involved. The like the neighbors that would be directly impacted by the installation would be involved. And what might also, to Councillor Gardner's point earlier, what might be a useful recommendation back to council would be like, yes, that's the process we intend to use and as an Arts and Culture Commission, but perhaps that a similar policy should be in place anytime there's a decorative element being considered in the city with or without arts funds, to make sure that this type of situation doesn't happen again, where it sounds like the parties that probably should have been consulted were not. So even if it's not our selection committee, there should be a selection committee.
I'm just trying to write that all down very fast. Okay, so, Doug went away, but I believe if we want to make a written recommendation to City Council, we need to vote on said recommendation. So I can make a motion as the chair, I think. So I move that we make a recommendation to City Council that other options for the fountain topper and lion heads be pursued, additional entities be involved, and then to just include a suggestion to see our process that we have identified to be inclusive of impacted communities for selecting art in the future.
I second.
All right. Anybody opposed? Okay.
Just
I will
one
put
point of
that-
clarification is that that third point of providing a recommendation of how such things might be considered in the future. Just a reminder that those are in our guidelines that haven't been in front of City Council yet either. So we can't just reference the existing thing that is codified. But
As per our draft bylaws.
yes.
Okay, perfect. I will send out a draft to the council, the commission, just to see if there's any inaccuracies before I send it to council on our behalf. Fun discussion. Yay, art.
And Mary, do you think that that gets to the heart of what council was after?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna cross that do business off. All right, next, Carrie, you want to tell us about the Clackamas County Art Alliances, art groups and city
You guys
art?
gonna vote on that? Did you vote on that motion?
Mhm. Yeah, no one was opposed, so I'll go ahead and.
I was looking at the picture from Rebecca of the hole in the ground where the fountain is going, so, sorry.
Problem. Right,
Yeah,
Carrie.
so the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, arts groups and commissions group, or like that's as official of a name as it gets, and it's a mouthful. But the intention of it is a good one. I think I think folks are familiar with the Clackamas County Arts Alliance. They've recently gotten a bit of a reboot. They kind of went dormant for a long time, but now they're slowly staffing back up and kind of reorganizing themselves. And the new executive director set up, I think, 4 different committees to help them figure out how best they can direct their energy. So there's like a literary arts one and a visual arts one, I think a performing arts. And then this 4th one is essentially just like a liaison group where it's basically all of the cities of Clackamas County. Right now, it's not all the cities, but the idea is that each arts commission like this or other arts related entity or nonprofit or whatever has somebody liaise with this group so we can all kind of have a sense of what everybody else is up to. So it's been really casual so far. It's like there's a guy from the city of Wilsonville's, like their nonprofit arts organization. There's a guy who just opened a gallery in Canby. There's the woman who runs the 3 Rivers Artists Group in Oregon City. So it's all these kind of like bits and pieces of groups that are kind of after the same thing, and just kind of swapping best practices and helping people kind of amplify marketing messages if people are trying to get the word out about stuff. So right now so they've been actively meeting all summer, and it was exciting to hear all the things people were up to, because all these people are doing their arts festivals and doing all these different like events in the park and stuff. And it was making me kind of sad. I was like, oh, we're on hiatus. I don't have any updates, but your updates are exciting. And right now, I'm very much in just like trying to like the mode of just learning from them, because I don't feel like we don't necessarily have a whole lot to offer to the other groups yet. But when we are at the point of wanting to promote stuff or getting our hands on artist lists and all that kind of stuff, it'll be a really useful resource, because we can kind of tap into their existing, Instagram followers and that kind of thing to get the word out about stuff in general. So nothing actionable or votable. I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware that the group existed, and I ended up being the liaison to it just because I happened to reach out to the group about something else entirely right when this group was getting off the ground, and was kind of suckered into attending the first meeting. But if other people want to like trade out being the liaison or wants to attend together, right now it's all, just via Zoom, then that's totally cool too. Just know they meet once a month, I want to say the last Tuesday of the month.
Thank you for doing that. That sounds like a great resource.
Yeah, it's fun just to kind of hear what like Oregon City is doing, like all these new murals, and both Wilsonville and Oregon City are getting new arts and culture commissions. Either, I think Wilsonville's is brand spanking new, and then Oregon City is kind of where we were, where it went dormant, and they're kind of redoing it. So hopefully soon we will be in a role of being able to share best practices with others.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Got it. I don't know, did we all just get that notice about being live streamed? Right. Well, thank you, Carrie, yes, for doing that. The next piece of business, which is longstanding, is the bylaws. So I did see, sorry, I read through everything and I just can't remember that the bylaws had been shared with the powers that be at the insurance, the like county insurance place.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and they had some feedback, but it was pretty minimal. Carrie,
My
do you have that?
impression of the feedback too was that it's the type of thing that is useful to file away later for us to include in individual contracts, but not necessarily something that we would need to, like, it's like, this is procedural stuff that shouldn't fall through the cracks, but it doesn't necessarily need to be in the guidelines.
Right.
I can read it out loud if that's useful for people.
Sure.
It's riveting. So there are 2 feedback points. The city will want to make sure they place a value on the artwork, which we outline in the agreement, but they will need to list the artwork on their property schedule for coverage. So that's just a procedural thing that we'll need to make sure we do. Artwork that we borrow is a little bit more challenging. Ideally, the owner of the art will provide coverage for their pieces and list the city or county as an additional insured. More often than not, the artists do not have the financial ability to provide insurance for their work, and the city or county will cover the piece of art. And so that sounds very much like this is a case-by-case basis. This is something that we would, negotiate individually with each artist. Yeah, in this case, the city or their agent will need to follow step 1 and contact Tina in underwriting. And so it can be listed on the property schedule. So I take this both as important feedback, but doesn't mean I'm happy to insert it into the guidelines, but I didn't feel like it necessarily needed to live there.
Yeah, that feels like a granular level that is,
Yeah.
as you said, important for the city, but maybe not for groups thing. So I know there have been talk of having the city attorney review the bylaws. I have lost track of who else, if anybody needs to look at these, or can we vote on getting them approved now? Do you happen to know?
I think that we, like Doug and I were trying to think back, and then we went back and we looked, and I'm like, I think we're at a point where we've presented to you guys have presented to everybody. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but I think that that's where we're at, that Bill Monahan went over them with you guys, and the last thing I think was getting it looked through for the guidelines with the insurance stuff, and I think that was the last step. So I think you guys are done and ready to present to council. Doug, am I?
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct on that. The CIS was the last Bill Monahan
Mhm.
gave us as representing the city attorney's office, that was our last step to do. We've done that. We've gotten the okay from them. So it's ready now to be presented to council at some point in the future.
Okay, so can you just say a little bit about presenting to council? Is that submitting it for
Sure.
their review?
Sure, we
and
can get it on. I can talk to Kathy tomorrow, see when there's availability to get it on the agenda, put a packet together for it that they can then review, and then they will go through a process of approving it. If they have questions during the approval process, they'll come back to us, come back to your group, I'm sorry, probably through myself or Mel, and then we'll just go from there. I don't know that there would be anything that would cause it to stop at this point. It seems pretty procedural at this point, nothing really more than that. So my guess is we can put together a staff packet and then see when it can naturally fit into the schedule the council has going forward.
Okay. Do we need to make an official vote about that, or can you just do that since we got the feedback from CIS?
I always think a vote is nice to have it on the record so that you can then say, okay, we voted that we're ready to send it to council and we've met, I would just say, vote that the policy bylaws are now ready for approval by the city council, and vote on that. We'll just include that in the packet. I'll send you all the packet before it goes out. And then once Kathy, again, it's all about scheduling at this point, where it fits in the natural time limit that they might need for it and when it can happen.
Okay, great, thank you.
And just so everybody knows, the version that went to CIS is the same version that we last reviewed and approved as a group, I believe. So if people haven't been tracking the edits moment by moment.
So does somebody want to make a motion or vote on that particular, that you guys all agree So we have it on record.
I move to present our draft commission guidelines to city council.
I second.
I think, I thought.
All right, well, I'm not opposed, so
Right, so it's passed.
passed. Unanimous. Yay. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Doug, and we'll stay tuned for when that might be on the calendar. So. Okay, that's the last part of that. And then old business is our inventory. When I was reading through our notes from April, we had so many art things on there, like public art pieces, and I don't know if any of those made it onto the spreadsheet. But I know Carrie was able to, I don't even know what, geotag stuff or make a map. Do you want to explain that, Carrie?
Sure.
I'll
yeah.
try and share the thing if I can.
Oh,
find it.
hold on, I got it.
Oh, okay.
So at our last meeting, I had cavalierly said, oh, it's super easy in Google Maps to do this. And luckily it turns out that's true. I thought it was true, but I played around with it and sure enough, I was able to do it in just a couple minutes. So this is just a draft version. This isn't public, but we can basically take this and once everybody's happy with how it's styled and what's on there, we can just like drop it onto our website even. So it's super easy. You can just come in here and how do I actually mess with my data? So open data table. So I just pulled the information from, and it's messy right now, but I pulled it from the spreadsheet. And right now I just have these 3 columns of the name or brief description if we don't know the name of the piece, the type, and we can talk about how granular we want to get. Like might want to just say like 2D art or 3D or whatever. Then we can have a little description and I'll show you how that gets surfaced in just a second. And then all you do is you drop in the latitude, longitude coordinates, which if you click anywhere on a Google map, it'll tell you that. So I just copied and pasted it into there. And then everything shows up. Right now I have it so that just for sake of demonstration, if it's in that sculpture category, it has a gold lion for all the same lion reasons that have already been covered in this meeting. I haven't added anything for mosaic yet. Murals gets a little purple palette. We can actually, right now, I'm just using generic iconography that is available through Google Maps, but you can actually upload custom iconography. So if we want to create some sort of image for each thing, we can. And we can have as many of these categories as we want. So like I said, we can figure out kind of the taxonomy of how we want to do it here. Hold on, my Zoom window is blocking my, oh, my Zoom application window is blocking my ability to zoom the map. There we go. But I dropped all the ones from in here are in here. This one is I think that's the grindstone one, right?
So when you at the grindstone, okay.
So when you click on it, the very first column shows up as the heading basically, and then all the other information shows up down here. And so we can have as much of a description as we want. We could have the artist called out as another column if we wanted to add that on there. And I need to zoom out again.
Yeah, I think
we just
I
called
would
it
like
the
to see
grindstone
the
sculpture. I think that's what we called it, was just the grindstone sculpture.
Just the grindstone sculpture.
Because it's made up of grindstones.
Right. It had an artist listed there and I wasn't sure.
It did. We went through the whole process. That is one piece that was actually overseen and approved through an arts commission process. And the city was involved in the selection of the artist. It went through the whole formal process. So
I would like to see also maybe later on a picture or something what we can add. That would be great. And also instead of only the coordinates, maybe more of an actual street address or some sort of a description where it is. Let's say it could be also like
Like Willamette Park.
close,
or-
yeah, or yeah, kind of a spot where it's could be founded. So not only the coordinates, because sometimes people might not want to Google the coordinates, but if you say, hey, it's downtown, or it's in an old town, or it's whatever in Melhurst area, then people are more like, ah, okay, I'm going there anyway, so maybe I check it out.
Right. So I think we need both, but I can look and see if we can suppress the coordinates so that the location can be more of the like human readable location. But there's some things where like the mosaic that says West Linn, that doesn't have a street address. That's really more like it is at this spot. And or like things that are in large parks. Like if you went to Willamette Park, you wouldn't necessarily see the grindstone sculpture because it's not like, you know, in the playground. So I think it's important to have that information that shows you literally where you need to walk to. But I think it's also important, to your point, Beata, that we have like the name of the park it's in or whatever.
I think both is good to know, because as you said, not always the address shows you exactly where it is. But if you say, I have the coordinates and the address or the area where it is, then it's for sure more easy to find, and also to have an idea, oh, yeah, I know where to go, kind of.
Right. So we
Okay,
can,
Does this get fed by the spreadsheet, or did you have to copy everything and paste it in here?
it started out, so I started it just, it was all pure test data. And unfortunately I blew away my test data because I also had an example in there that had a photo. I wonder if because yes, you can add photos really easily too. But yeah, I think I blew that away. But as far as I can tell, so you start with a spreadsheet and then you tell it to use that spreadsheet for the basis of the map. But as far as I can tell, once that connection is made, then you can only edit it here, I think. So we can make it so we can all have edit access to this and we can all collaboratively add to it. But I think we have to do it through the map interface, not through the spreadsheet, which seems weird. So I need to verify that. But that was what I was discovering when because I wanted to just
How
copy.
do you, by any chance, how do you want to add pictures? Because like with the, what is it, grainstone sculpture, I took some pictures because I wanted to know exactly what it was about. And so if someone takes a picture, can we upload it somewhere or to
Yeah.
you? And then, I mean, if it's not the perfect one, we still can go back, but that we have something. Or if someone comes across with an art piece we haven't realized before, that we take a picture and then put it in there, so that maybe someone else knows more about it. So how can we do that? And or can we do that actually in that spreadsheet? Or is it better to send it maybe to you, Carrie, because you are working on that Google map?
I'm happy to do that, but also you can, once we make this map public, I'm pretty sure anybody can. Like, you know, just like on Google Maps now, you can, you know, like a lot of the photos you see of public parks and stuff are just crowdsourced. We can do that here as well. I haven't played around yet with the permissions to see, like, say we don't want that. Say we want to tightly control who can post photos. We might be able to do that as well. I'm not sure, but anyone who has access to this map currently can. And right now it's just me, because I don't even know how to share. I shall share it in the chat. And then you guys should be able to just go to it and add photos to your heart's content. We can experiment. Anyway, it's not the world's most thrilling demo right now, but it was much easier to get it this far than I expected. And so I think we could very easily get this into, like now it's, you know, kind of massaging the content to be consistent and tidy and spell checked and blah, blah, blah. And then we could just embed it directly on our webpage on the city's website, and poof, a map of art.
Impressive, Carrie.
Google developers get all the credit.
Yeah,
Great,
but
thank
you
you
got it
so
all in
much.
there and got all the
I
information.
don't even
got
know
it
how you
organized,
did it,
so
but perfect.
kudos to you.
Yes, thank you. That looks awesome.
Yeah,
The fun part's going to be designing our little custom icons to represent
Yeah.
sculptures. Because I agree that a lion, well, nobody's said that a lion doesn't represent sculpture, but I suspect that people might not think that's the best symbol. So
Awesome, Carrie. Thank you so much. If you think, yeah, we'll just want to play with the permissions and sort of keep beta testing this and
yeah, totally.
How to
And
get-
you can all look at the, does that link work?
it worked. You can't add anything. So
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
I
I'll
can
play with
do all the
that.
things.
And then, yeah, I'll see if I can figure that out, and I'll share it out again so that at least you guys can start kind of looking at it and see what should be added, and you can funnel any edits to me, but ideally I won't be the sole owner forever of this. And so I can also look into making it so that we can manage it by committee.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, and I saw Westland redid their website again, actually. Or they redesigned something. Anyway, ideally, I think it would be to pass it off to the city's ownership, right? And then you don't have to be on the council for the rest of your life.
Like 80 getting calls. Can you add the new sculpture?
Which that's actually a good segue. So for board comments, yeah, I think we can move on to that. I believe you probably all saw MJ has resigned. She just has another commitment on Wednesdays that takes priority over this. So can't remember. We should have a spreadsheet of people's like expiration dates for their appointment. Not general. I tried to look in my email. I think mine is the end of this year.
I thought I sent that out to everybody. I usually send it out at the beginning of the year, but with COVID, it may
Okay.
not have gotten out. But I have one. I have a spreadsheet that I make because I do it for ACC. I do it for lab. So I can send that out to all of you guys tomorrow so that you know. Because
That would be
everybody's
super.
going to be staggered because otherwise then everybody would be leaving at the same time. So I will send that out. I'll email it out to you guys after we get off this call
Awesome.
Are people
Thanks.
still using?
or first thing tomorrow. I'm
We have
sorry.
that Dropbox set up. And I don't know how often, I mean, I know it exists, but I haven't looked at it in months, but we haven't talked in months, but like maybe we should be putting stuff like that in when like over there. So because I suspect, I feel like we have asked you to send that out like 3 times. So.
I have a question about that timeline we are in. So if someone's time is up, but they want to continue, how does that work? I mean, resigning looks like it's not that hard, but does it work if you want to be again on the committee? Because I guess that has to be voted in through the city or.
Yeah, I can tell you the
does it do?
process for that if you'd like.
Okay.
So each person has to submit an application after reapplication. So if your term was up and you decided you want to continue, and you would fill out the application specifically for community. I think they're changing the name. It's not citizens anymore, but community advisory groups. And so that's on the website, and they should be letting you know when you're up, but you will be able to let you know when we send out that email.
Mhm.
The other thing is that then other people can decide, in the community, if they see, oh, well, there's potentially openings. I would suggest, that is a council decision. It's made through the mayor and the council. That if you have suggestions or recommendations for people that you might want to send them their way, they ultimately are the deciding body as to who resides on these committees. And it's something that they usually do at once or twice a year, well, once a year, just before, as things go forward for the next year, for the ones that are open across all the boards. But they do have to occasionally, as Mary can attest, I'm sure that they have openings that come up and they bring in new applicants and decide on them from that point. But I would suggest if you have folks that you would, you can, we can gather that information and or send it to Mary or to the council.
Is there still a cap on these 7 people, or is that revised that they say, okay, we can also have a bigger group up to 10 or so?
I think it's in the bylaw or the
It is.
7.
It used to be 9, and several years ago, council took it down. I think it was when I first started with the library, so that's been 7 years ago. It used to be 9, and for all of the advisories. So the library advisory board went down to 7. And until that's changed, I think that's in their bylaws. Okay.
All very helpful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mel, for resending
Yes, I will.
that
Absolutely.
information. I have one other comment, and then I will open it up and I will stop holding all the space. But just so everybody knows, Portland Open Studios is the 2nd and 3rd weeks of October. Or it's weekends, sorry. There are 3 to 4 Westland artists. I think there's a guy down in Oregon City. There's definitely a couple in Lake Oswego. It is free. You can just download the maps and you can go all over the city. Obviously they have COVID protocols in place, but it is one of my favorite things. And that is one of my most favorite connections to art out in the world. So I encourage you all to check it out if you have time.
Yeah,
Is that this weekend, Carrie or Lauren, did you say this weekend?
2nd and 3rd weekends of October. So it's
Second
next
and third,
weekend.
okay.
On that note, there is a group show in Lake Oswego in the city hall. It's called Abandoned. And I guess a few
saw your
people of us have a piece in there, what is really excited, but it's a great show. I love what they picked and what they hang and how they hung the show. So if anyone has chance, it's open during regular business hours, I guess, from 10 to 5 or 9 to 5 or something. But yeah.
Where was that, Beata?
Chance, it's really nice. What?
Where was that?
In the city hall of Lake Oswego, or actually not really in the city hall. What is it called? The Art
Arts Council.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
They have their own
now,
space.
when you go on A Street, it's actually when you see the big steps they have now, the big staircase, it's right there, and they have a really nice space now. And it's going until the end of this month. So if you're out and about checking out open studios, maybe that's a combination.
And there's open studio artists usually here in Westland too. Like there's just a couple of them, at least last time there's just a couple. So it's not just in Portland proper.
I know, I think there's 3 in Westland. Yeah, down in Oregon City. There's one like Oswego. There's a couple in Tigard. There's definitely a larger representation of Southern and Southeastern artists than there have previously been.
And lately they included Oregon City because usually the river was the border. Nothing could jump over the bridge, sort of. So now I guess it's nice that they also included Oregon City for, I guess now a few years. But yeah, you should check it out.
Oh. Well, thank you for the information about the Lake Oswego one too. I'll have to try and get over there. Does anybody else have anything they want to share about stuff that's happening or ideas they have? Yes, Ms. Carey.
Just real quick, just something to start thinking about. So one of the things that comes up all the time in that liaison group is what people are doing with their grant money. And apparently it's like becoming a problem that grant offering groups aren't getting enough applications. And it made me think like, we need to figure out a project that needs money. We need to ask for money. But the Oregon Cultural Coalition's grant window closes on Friday. So that's probably not a good one for us for this year, but that's something we can keep in mind in the future. But also RAC has kind of like They have a window, I think that literally closed today, but it looks like they do them quarterly. So there's another one in January. And that felt like a more doable horizon if that was something that we wanted to, like if there was a project and the thing that prevented us from pursuing that project was a lack of funds, then I just want to make sure that people are aware that that's an avenue available, and the types of projects that I'm hearing people get funding for are kind of, in line with the types of things we've talked about doing.
I think there was an America Wax one that expired like 2 days before our meeting, and I was like, no, it's not, not for us, but.
Yeah, apparently early October is grant season, and so something to just keep in mind for the future.
Right, that's a good reminder, thanks. Anything else from anybody else for the good of the order? Right, I think our next meeting is going to be November 3rd. So mark your calendars, clear your desks. Do let me or Mel know, or Carrie as co-chair, if there's anything you'd like to add to the agenda. I feel like we got through a lot of things today that have been lingering, so we'll see what comes up in the next month, but maybe we can come with some grant ideas or, project ideas for getting grants for something.
I think
All
it's
right.
still, one more thing I want to say to think about for next time is the opportunity to curate a show here in the community room / gallery space that we've talked about in the past, and that's still obviously available if that's something you want to do.
Yes. Okay, I will add that for our new business for next month.
And the design committee may have some ideas of some additional things we'd like to see happen on Main Street. So I know there's a few ideas that have been tossed around. We haven't really had a chance to formulate them in terms of, so we may bring those back as well for projects that we might want to pursue.
Okay. Great, Jody. Well, and hopefully maybe next time Shelley will be able to join us as well. It'd be nice to meet
I
her.
sure hope so. I got a text from her that she was running late. She teaches full-time at Tiger School in art. She's an art teacher, and she also has a job at PSU. And so she just said that she was just running late. So hopefully she can make it next time. If she doesn't, I'll continue on and just coordinate with her.
We're happy to have you. Thank you for making the time to be here. It's a great connection to have.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
All right, well, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we'll go ahead and adjourn. You guys got a free half hour. Live it up.
Thank you.
Thank
Lynn.
you.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you again.
All right, see you next
Bye.
month. Bye.
Bye-bye.